I think Notre Dame got lucky last season. And that's probably more controversial to say than it actually is. I mean, Ohio State definitely got lucky last season. Arizona State got lucky last season. Texas got lucky last season. But I think that Notre Dame was the luckiest team in the country. And I don't think that they're going to be able to replicate the same success they had in 2024 in the 2025 season. And I made a video last season, a little bit before the playoff, I think maybe a week or two before the playoffs started, about why Notre Dame was being ranked in the same kind of stratosphere as Texas and Penn State at the time, as opposed to teams like Indiana and Boise State. And I think that maybe my point was lost because so many people were talking about these stats, advanced stats, that Notre Dame was so great with all these advanced stats. And my argument wasn't that Notre Dame wasn't one of the best teams in the country. I think that they were. I actually love Notre Dame's style under Marcus Freeman. I love a game that can travel. They run the ball. They always have a good offensive line. They have one of the best running backs in the country, probably the best running back in the country for this upcoming season. Great defense, and they don't rely so much on throwing the ball. But you can have a great style. You can be a great team, but your accomplishments have to go into ranking. And I don't think that Notre Dame's accomplishments last season were reflective of where they were ranked. I think they were ranked fifth at the end of the season. And I don't think that what happened in the playoff was necessarily replicable if they were to do it again. I definitely don't think that it's going to travel to this next season. But before we go too far, make sure that you like and subscribe to my channel. We're trying to grow this before college football season, so make sure that you're along for the ride. So what prompted me to do this video now is that I saw an On3 video where they were going through their mailbag, and this guy called in. He was a Notre Dame fan from South Bend, and he was saying that no team could have done what Notre Dame did after the Northern Illinois loss, where they rolled off 10 straight victories, 13 straight victories if you include the playoffs, to get to the national championship game. They're not getting the respect that they deserve for that run. And sure, okay, it's very impressive that they pulled off 10 straight victories, but they wouldn't have had to get it back together if they didn't lose to Northern Illinois. And they didn't lose to Northern Illinois because Riley Leonard got hurt, which some people explain. They didn't lose to Northern Illinois because they got bad calls. They got outplayed by Northern Illinois at home in the second week of the season after a huge victory at Texas A&M. So you can say that they're not getting the respect that they deserve for that, but nobody else had to overcome that. Nobody else put themselves in a position where they had to overcome that. So that's the first kind of level of this argument, is that last season, Notre Dame was set to win, I would say, every game of the season. They should have gone 12-0. As difficult as it is, they were set to go 12-0, especially after that week one win at Texas A&M. Obviously, going to Texas A&M is a very difficult thing. 100,000 people in the stadium. But Texas A&M wasn't that good. So it's not like they were going to play Georgia in Sanford Stadium. They were going down to play in Kyle Field. So as big as it is, and anything can happen when you're on the road. It's not some program-defining victory that some people were saying it was. But let's look at the rest of the schedule. Let's look at what happened, what they had to go through once they came back from that terrible Northern Illinois loss. Probably the biggest upset in college football since App State beat Michigan in, 2005? So they come back and they take on Purdue, who is the worst Power 5 team in the country last season. Goes 1-11. Their only victory for Purdue was against Indiana State. They win 66-7. They then play Miami of Ohio, who was the fourth or second of four G5 teams that they'll play through this season, along with Purdue and Florida State, who are probably the two worst Power 4 teams last season. So that's like six games, right? 6 games where they're playing teams that nobody else lost to. What did Florida State end up with? They were 17th in the ACC, 2-10. So two of their Power 4 victories were against teams that had one or two wins in a Power 4 conference. Louisville's probably looks like their most impressive win, but Louisville was not ranked at the end of the season. They beat them by 1 touchdown in September when they were ranked 15, but Louisville was like others receiving votes at the end of the season. So fringe top 25 team. Stanford was not a good team. Stanford was 14th. So 3. Okay, so they had 3 victories. 3 victories against Power 4 teams that had 3 or less wins. They had 3 victories against G5 teams. So 6 of their 11 victories last season come against either Power 4 teams with 3 or less wins or G5 teams. They had 1, 2. Was Virginia Bowl eligible? 3 victories. 4 victories. 4 victories against Power 4 teams that were bowl eligible. Okay? They did what they had to do. Besides Northern Illinois, they showed up in every single game and they brought their brand of football, which I think is a great brand of football. Power running, good defense, one of the strongest offensive lines. They're bringing back Jeremiah Love. They're bringing back a more experienced offensive line. They're bringing back Great House. They're bringing back a lot of their defense besides a linebacker and a safety. But besides that, they're bringing back a lot of their defense. So you would think that they could pull it together and do it again next season. There's some question marks about the quarterback, which we'll get to. But let's just look at, remember, 4 of their 11 wins in the season are against bowl-eligible Power 4 teams. 2025. Let's just look at the bowl-eligible Power 4 teams that they have to play. Miami, obviously bowl-eligible. Texas A&M, obviously bowl-eligible. Arkansas was bowl-eligible. Then I don't know if they won their bowl game, but they were bowl-eligible. So that's 3. Boise State, we'll count it as, I mean, they were a playoff team. So yeah, they're G5, but they're still a playoff team. So we're going to count that in a difficult game next season. NC State, I don't know. NC State was bowl-eligible last season. So that's 5. USC, bowl eligible. Boston College, I believe, was bowl eligible last season. Yep, double check. Yeah, 7-6, bowl eligible. So that's 7. Pitt was bowl eligible last season. Syracuse was bowl eligible last season, right? Syracuse, one of the best teams in the ACC last season. Pitt was bowl eligible. So you're looking at, what, 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, whoa. So Purdue was not. Navy was not a. Yeah, so 9 games this season. So where they had 7 games against either G5 or absolute shit Power 4 teams last season, they now have 9 against bowl eligible teams from last season. Obviously, in college football, things change from year to year, and it's so much so, more than I think any other, maybe the NBA is only, and even the NBA is slowing down as how much they change. College football is changing rosters so much. I was looking at the transfer portal. It's crazy. But 9 teams that were bowl eligible last season, Power 5 bowl eligible, or a Boise State playoff team. And then you have Navy, who was a top 25 team for most of the season and ended, I think, also has others receiving votes. So 10, we're looking at really 10 tough games outside of Purdue and Stanford, both of which are technically rivalry games. They play Purdue at home, so they should smack Purdue, and they should smack Stanford as well, but they have to play at Stanford. That's, tough road trip out to California. 11 tough games, we'll say. 11 of your 12 tough games. Can they replicate what they did in 2024 if they trip up? Like, let's say they don't win against Miami. That's a super tough game. At Miami, it's one of the Sunday games in the opening weekend. It's probably the biggest game of the opening weekend. Top 10, at least. It's for sure top 25, top 20, but it could be top 10, top 5, depending on how much they give Carson Beck when he goes to Miami. That's a huge, tough game. No matter what, playing in Miami in August is difficult, and Miami's good. Miami was good. They were almost a playoff team last season. Then they get Texas A&M again, which they get them at home. Texas A&M is not the greatest SEC team, but it's an SEC team coming home and probably another top 25 matchup. Arkansas at Arkansas, that's a road game against a bowl-eligible SEC team. That's tough. Boise State, this is probably Boise State's only game next season. Let's get a look. Yeah, I mean, depending on what UNLV does this next season, at Notre Dame is their game. That is their game next season. So, and Boise State comes to play, and if they have one big game, they come to play in that one big game. They should have beat Oregon last season. I'm an Oregon fan. I know they should have beat them. Oregon got lucky with a couple special teams plays at the end of the game, and they pull off the victory. But Boise State should have probably beat them. Should have been 12-0. Probably should have been. Well, they were a top 4 seed, so I don't know how much they would improve on that. But still, that's going to be a very tough game. And if they make it out of the first month and a week of the season, if they get out of the first week of October with only one loss, similar to what they did last season, then they have a chance to replicate it. Then we're looking at a true power team that is going to be able to replicate it. But they don't have the luxury that they had last season of tripping up against a Northern Illinois or maybe a Purdue this season. After 2 tough games, they show up for the 2 tough games and they trip up against Purdue. They don't have the luxury of then having all these teams that they should beat right afterward. They don't have Purdue and then Miami to build back up to the Louisville. If they lose to Purdue, they have to go to Arkansas the next week. If they don't pull it off against Arkansas, they have to come home and play Boise State the next week. It could snowball. It's the opposite. This where they have the time to rebuild, they don't have that. No matter what you say about how impressive last season was, they had a runway to lose that game. They shouldn't have lost it in the first place. They should have gone 12-0 in the first place, but they had a runway. They don't have that runway this season. Even if they get out of there with 1 loss or 2 losses, even the easier games, the NC State, the USC, those are still tough games. I don't think that a 2-loss Notre Dame team is automatically a playoff team. I don't think. I think that you can't look at it as 2-loss Notre Dame is the same as fucking Tennessee last season. Or the same as who are other 2-loss teams? Ohio State, right? Obviously not the same as Ohio State. Ohio State had one of the toughest schedules in the country last season. This is a tough schedule, but it's not the same as most SEC schedules, most Big Ten schedules for the top teams. The top teams are playing each other. I mean, probably it's more difficult than Oregon's because Oregon gets the lucky schedule, but definitely not what it was last season. And last season they had that bot senior quarterback that everyone has nowadays. Everyone has the bot senior quarterback they bring in from a slightly smaller school. They pay him a couple $1,000,000, and he comes in and he wins the games for him. That's what Riley Leonard was last season. You can say what you want about Riley Leonard. If you watched the national championship game, the first drive of the game, Riley Leonard willed them to score in that first drive of the game. And they looked like they had a good chance at, sticking with Ohio State. Their defense couldn't hold it up, and they couldn't get anything going after that. They could not stand up with Ohio State, who no one could, right? But the quarterbacks they have coming in, they've had a guy that's been a backup for 3 seasons, who they brought in Riley Leonard to start over him last season, and Angeli. And I was just listening to Greg McElroy saying that Angeli might just be great. He came in and he came in against whoever when Riley Leonard was down with a concussion, and he led him on a drive. He was slinging it. He might just be great. And he was talking in comparison to C.J. Carr, who a lot of people are talking up because he's got a lot of great talent, but he's a young quarterback, right? It's not always a bad thing that you're coming into the season with quarterback controversy. Not really controversy, competition, I guess. It's not always a bad thing that that's happening. I think a lot of teams around the country are, but it's not like they have the runway they had last season. That built into it, right? Obviously, Riley Leonard needed to get acclimated with the Notre Dame system coming from Duke last season. But he had played games. He had played in the ACC, and essentially Notre Dame is playing a hybrid ACC schedule nowadays. So he had played in those games. It's obviously different with Notre Dame, but and again, it was an easier schedule that he had runway to get going. They are now going to bring in a guy that doesn't have starting experience, whoever it is, Carr, Angeli, or there's still time in the portal. I don't think there's any great quarterbacks out there, but there's still time in the portal to bring somebody else in if they decide to bring somebody else in. But now they're starting that guy without starting experience, without a runway, right? Obviously, Riley Leonard gets thrown into the fire with Texas A&M. They pull it off, but then they struggle. They struggle against Northern Illinois. Riley Leonard gets hurt, but even Riley Leonard, there shouldn't have been 14 points. There shouldn't have been that little points even before then, right? And that's part of that, getting used to a new system and having to play somebody in their biggest game, like we talked about with Boise State, which is probably going to be the same for Miami and a lot of these teams that they play this season, where they're playing them in their biggest game. But they don't have the runway to get somebody going. So let's say, which a lot of people are suggesting, that they're going to start Angeli to start the season and maybe work in Carr. Well, Angeli doesn't have experience either. He wasn't starting before either. So this is still a new thing for him. Like, he does, just because he's been in college or been on the team a little longer doesn't mean that he has this rock hard experience that is going to guide him through the struggles of the Miami game. And you don't necessarily need to have that. I don't think that it's the end all be all. Talent is probably more important than that. But still, either way, you're going to have a new quarterback going into the biggest game of the opening weekend, only game at the time frame on Sunday at 4:30. That's the only game that's going to be on. That's challenge. And if you can't pull off that victory, you're starting behind the 8 ball, right? That's your big game. You put it at the beginning of the season, you lose that game. I'm an Oregon fan. We've lost many of those games where we're like, this is the big game that's going to put us on the national stage. You lose that game, you are then fighting back because that's what people remember is you got your ass kicked or you lost in the first game of the season. You're fighting back. And they have some opportunities, right? But a Boise State win, take it from, again, a Ducks fan who's had a couple Boise State wins, that it's a tough game. It's a tougher game than anybody's going to give you credit for. So even if you win that game, it's not the rebuild resume. Maybe it's a little different for Notre Dame. They get the benefit of the doubt more often than not, but that's not going to be the resume building game that you think it's going to be. But it is going to be that tough of a game. So if they don't pull it off, or if they lose Texas A&M or whatever, they struggle. They don't have the same runway, the same schedule they had last season to pull it off with this new quarterback. And maybe this quarterback's better. Maybe they can actually throw for over 200 yards a game like they didn't do last season. But again, a lot of that's because they're kicking everybody's ass. It remains to be seen. But I don't think, if you're looking at playoff teams from last season, which is a lot of what we're doing, looking at playoff teams from last season, and especially national champion runner-up with a great playoff run, a great regular season, end of the season run, I don't think that you can pencil in Notre Dame for the playoff. I think that they're at the most a fringe team, and we'll see. Come, Monday the 6th, when we have all the talking heads back on, Monday, October 6th, when they have all the talking heads back on and we start to get those polls coming out, Sunday, I guess, we'll see where Notre Dame stands. From there, we can really assess what they're going to be next season. But that first 5-game stretch is going to be incredibly difficult, and we'll see if they're able to pull it off. But let me know what you think. I know there's going to be a lot of people that say I have a Notre Dame bias, and there's a lot of other people out there that have that as well. There's going to be Notre Dame fans that are saying they're going to go 16-0 and make it to the national championship game. But let me know what you think. Let me know what their most difficult game is going to be and why they're going to be able to make 2024 happen again, or why they won't make that happen. Also, let me know other teams you want me to talk about. I'm going to try to get more of these kind of videos where it's a little more off the cuff, just looking at what we can see going into the 2025 season. So let me know other teams you want me to talk about, conferences, trends that are going to be happening. Obviously, we have our last guaranteed 12-team playoff, but there might be some changes, so we'll talk about that and all that kind of stuff. But other than that, thanks for watching this video. Like I said, like and subscribe if you've made it this far. Make sure you leave a comment as well. If you want to watch more of my videos, I do have those for you. On this side, I've got my video about March Madness if it was in college football. We had this great finish with Florida and Houston, so if you're begging for more March Madness coverage, check that one out there. Up here, I've got my most popular video, which is my perfect Power 5 conference realignment, so check that one out if you haven't already. Other than that, I've got my subscribe link here, and we will check you next time. See ya!